Hello, amazing, phenomenal leader. Welcome to Take the Lead, a consciousness movement with Angilie Kapoor. Now, on this show, each week we help you become one with the rhythm by stepping into your potential, by embodying your inner phenomenal leader and taking the lead of yourself and in your own life. Now, as you may know by now, my name is Angilie Kapoor. I am a conscious leadership coach, multi book author, inspirational speaker, as well as your host. I'm also the founder of my leadership coaching company, Oversight Global, where we are on a mission to address the consciousness crisis in the world, one leader at a time. Now, today we have another absolutely amazing guest joining us today. I am super excited at what we'll be exploring in our discussion on embracing your unique superpowers, learning how to tap into your innate wisdom by harnessing the strength of high sensory perception. Now, I have a feeling this is going to be a fabulous, just fantastic conversation. So be sure to stay right there. You don't want to miss this. Now, yesterday, Sunday, June 16th, we celebrated Father's Day here in the States. Now, Father's Day is a special occasion dedicated to honoring and appreciating the incredible influence of fathers and father figures worldwide. Now, this day serves as an opportunity to recognize the unconditional love, sacrifice, and unwavering support that fathers offer to their families and society. Celebrating Father's Day is important because it allows us to acknowledge and express gratitude for the myriad ways in which fathers shape our lives, from nurturing and guiding us in our formative years to providing ongoing support and wisdom as we grow. It's a day to reflect on the essential role that fathers play in fostering strong, compassionate, and resilient communities, making it a celebration of profound love and respect that transcends cultural and geographical boundaries. Now, for me and my dad, we actually got to spend Father's Day together in person this year, which was very special. I hope that all of you were able to celebrate and enjoy Father's Day as much as my family and I did. Now, I am super excited to be launching a book called Cracking the Rich Code with Jim Britt, one of the world's top influencers, along with 20 other top entrepreneurs and success strategists. Now, the book is endorsed by none other than Tony Robbins, with the foreword by the legendary Brian Tracy. Now, media outlets such as NBC, ABC, Fox, and CBS News have already ran stories on their website about the book and its launch, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, June 18th. Now, in celebration of its official launch, we'll be reducing the price of the Kindle version to 99 cents for a few hours tomorrow morning to allow you to grab your copy. Now, discounted copy early tomorrow morning to all of my email list subscribers. If you're not yet on our email list, just click on the link that's on your screen below to opt in. Now, trust me, you'll love this book. We truly appreciate you helping us and making it a number one international bestseller. Okay, so as you may well know by now, the premise of this show, Take the Lead, a consciousness movement, is to help you recognize and embody what I call your inner phenomenal leader, your true, authentic self that you are truly meant to be, to help you uncover the power that you have within to step into your potential and contribute to the world as only you uniquely can. Now, to do this in a fun way on this show, we look at the parallels of couple dancing, like salsa and ballroom dancing, with leadership development concepts to help you become the leader of yourself and in your own life. Now, like I mentioned, today we're going to be discussing and exploring embracing your unique superpowers by learning how to tap into your innate wisdom by harnessing the strength of high sensory perception. Now, in the world of salsa, ballroom, and couple dancing, there exists a striking similarity to leadership when it comes to embracing one's unique superpowers and tapping into their innate wisdom through high sensory perception. Now, just as dancers must synchronize their movements by tuning into their partner's cues and the music's rhythm, effective leaders can harness their strengths by being attuned to their surroundings and team dynamics. Now, this ability to read subtle signals and adapt in real time mirrors the agility required in leadership roles. Embracing high sensory perception allows leaders to make informed decisions, communicate effectively, and inspire their teams towards a common goal. By learning to leverage these sensory superpowers, individuals can lead with authenticity, empathy, and a deep understanding of the intricacies involved in guiding a collective effort towards success. And with that, what are your thoughts or questions on my monologue today? Let me know by emailing me at admin@oversightglobal.com. Now, that, folks, was our new commercial for my newly redesigned speaker website. Pretty cool, right? Now, I'm super excited that it's finally up, so be sure to go and check it out at www.angeliekapoor.com and let me know what you think about it, will you? Okay, so let's get to our guest spotlight. Now, Rachel Radway is a certified leadership and executive coach, mastermind facilitator, and author of Perceptive: The Power and Potential of High Sensory Perception, which is coming out in the summer of 2025. Now, Rachel spent almost 30 years in the corporate world, mainly in tech, including leadership roles in content, communications, and design operations. For decades, she's felt alone and unable to be fully herself at work because her brain seemed to work so differently from others. But she always gave 200%, hitting severe burnout more than once, and ended up quitting her job, selling her house, and moving to rural Peru to recover in one instance. Now, along that healing journey, Rachel began studying a trait she shares with 20 to 30% of the population, which she calls high sensory perception. Also known as processing sensitivity, it shows up in various ways, including responsiveness to a wide variety of physical, environmental, emotional, and energetic stimuli. Now, she works with high sensory leaders who are ready to embrace their innate wisdom and superpowers, start prioritizing self care, and shifting from surviving to thriving professionally and personally. So, phenomenal leaders, without further ado, please help me welcome to the show the amazing Rachel Radway. Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here today. I can't tell you how excited I am for our conversation.
Hey, Angilie, thank you for having me. I am really excited about it too.
Oh, sounds awesome. Now, before I forget, we will be periodically displaying Rachel's contact information and social media platforms. So, if at any time you feel called to check out more information on what she does and how she might be able to help you, be sure to go to those platforms, follow her, and connect with her. So, I think probably one of the first things we should do is define for people who might not know at home who are watching what is being highly perceptive or having high sensitivity.
Absolutely. And it's a trait that has a lot of different names to it. So it can be very confusing. Basically, the trait of high sensitivity, which is the scientific name for it, Angilie mentioned before in my intro, is sensory processing sensitivity. I call it high sensory perception or high perceptiveness. Just because there is some stigma in our society associated with the trait of sensitivity.
Mhm.
It can manifest in a lot of different ways. And as Angilie mentioned, 20 to 30% of the population have it. The way I think of it is there is a spectrum of sensitivity, and everybody in the world is on the spectrum somewhere.
Mhm.
About 20 to 30% would make sense, are on the higher end of the spectrum. So people we would consider highly sensitive or highly perceptive. There are also a lot of different ways that you can be sensitive or perceptive. So
Mhm.
you mentioned physical stimuli, energetic, emotional, and other kinds of stimuli. In some people, this manifests as being very, very sensitive to sound or lighting or textures. There's some people who can't deal with, tags on the back of their clothing. For me, sound is particularly strong, and I really can't concentrate if there's, when the landscapers are outside and they've got all their power tools going. There's also a lot of energetic and emotional stimuli. So people with this trait tend to be very empathetic. They
Mhm.
tend to be able to read a room really well. They tend to perceive nonverbal communication and understand what's going on with other people, even when those people aren't necessarily expressing it. And there are people who get emotional at, movies or reading novels or things that they know aren't real, but are affecting them anyway, very deeply.
Mhm.
So these are all different ways that sensitivity can show up. And I think of it as, if you know the sound boards, mixing boards that
Right.
have all of those little channels with the dials on it. Everybody's got one of those mixing boards, but everybody's is set differently. So
Mhm.
you may have 3 dials up over here and 6 dials up over here, and somebody else may have a completely different combination of dials that are set. And some
Right.
people only have 1 or 2, and some people have a lot. I happen to have, I don't know, a lot.
So thank you for explaining that. That helps a lot. So a couple of things came up for me when you were kind of giving that definition. So is the sensitivity spectrum the same as the autism spectrum that we hear about?
It's not, and that
Okay.
is something that does come up for a lot of people. So the way I think about it, there is this giant bucket of sensitivity.
Mhm.
People on the autism spectrum typically are very highly sensitive. People who have ADHD typically are highly sensitive. People who have other um, neurodiversity, types of neurodiversity or neurodivergence
Mhm.
typically are highly sensitive. So
Okay.
there's this giant bucket of sensitivity that is manifest in different ways,
Mhm.
but and they overlap, but not everyone who is sensitive also has the other things. So you can be sensitive and have autism. You
Mhm.
can be sensitive and have ADHD. You can have all three, or you can have just the sensitivity.
Okay. Okay. And then, so how does like being an empath and being an introvert kind of play into this as well? I know this came up for us when we were having our pre-show discussion. So, yeah, can you kind of help people kind of understand where that kind of falls into you know, the game board?
Absolutely. So great questions, because I know this can be really confusing for a lot of people. So I'll start with the introvert and extrovert.
Okay.
There is there definitely can be an overlap, and there are definitely some similarities. So whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or you can also be an ambivert, which means somebody who has kind of both traits,
Right.
typically that relates to how you recharge, how you refuel and get your energy. Extroverts typically recharge by being around other people. They really need other people to get their energy.
Mhm.
Introverts, on the other hand, may really enjoy being around others. It doesn't mean they don't like being around with other people, but they get their energy, they refuel and recharge by being alone.
Right.
So they're going to need more downtime. When you look at the spectrum of highly sensitive people, in the high range, about 70% of those people are also introverts.
Okay.
So they may need, and I qualify as one of them, we actually need even more downtime than someone who is an introvert who's not highly sensitive. And on the other hand, there are extroverts who are highly sensitive. And I know several of these. And this can be really confusing because they know they're introverts. They know they love going to parties. They love going to concerts. They really enjoy being with other people. And yet they know they need more downtime than acquaintances or friends of theirs who are also extroverts.
Mm-hmm.
That's because of their high sensitivity. So you can have both at one time, and you just need to honor yourself and give yourself that downtime and that space that may be a little bit more than other extroverts that you know need.
Right.
Switching over to empaths. So I know there's actually a lot of debate about this. There have been books written about what an empath is and what that means. And there are different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say that empaths are a separate group from HSPs, or highly sensitive people, or in my case, I call them high sensory professionals. The way I look at it, if you go back to that, the mixing board with the different dials,
Mm-hmm.
the way I see it is empaths are a subset of highly sensitive people or highly perceptive people. It's just that their types of sensitivity happen to be in one specific area, which is around empathy. And even within the group of empaths, there are different kinds of empaths. There are some who feel physically what other people feel. So you might feel a sore throat or a stomach ache or a headache and be confused because you're not really sure whether it's yours or somebody else's.
Right.
There are some people who are emotional empaths, and so they take on other people's emotional energy or how other people are feeling, their feelings. So this can be really hard. Actually, either one can be hard if you're in a train station or a concert or a crowded room or even a meeting where there's a lot going on. You have to learn how to sort of defend yourself, protect yourself against other people's physical issues, energetic issues, emotional issues.
Right.
Again, I just see that as a subset. Some empaths also have some of the other traits that some highly sensitive people share, and some don't. So I think it's really just, part of the larger umbrella.
Right, right. So you come from a background of being a corporate for over 30 years. So did you know right away that you were highly perceptive or, highly sensitive, or how did you come about it? Because I am too, and I did not figure that out until after I left corporate. So I'm curious to know when you figured that out, because I'm sure there's people out there kind of wondering too, well, how do you know?
It's a great question. And this just came up recently in a conversation I was talking with one of my clients. So I think we're ready to learn things when we're ready to learn them. Interestingly, I first read about this trait back in, I think it was around 2000. So there is a psychologist named Elaine Aron, and she was the first person to really talk about and write about and actively research this trait. And she wrote a book called The Highly Sensitive Person that came out, I think, in the late 90s. I first read that book a few years after it came out. And honestly, it was a revelation. I mean, I thought, wow, I've found my people. This explains so much about my life. And it was a relief to know that I wasn't alone and my brain wasn't just weird or broken or anything else. It was, our brains actually do work differently. And so the book really spoke to me. And then I promptly forgot about it. And it wasn't until fairly recently that a series of events happened that reminded me of it. I actually one night was watching Netflix and a documentary called Sensitive came up. And I started watching it and I thought, this looks really familiar. And then I realized very quickly that it was made from the book. And that sort of the coins dropped. A whole bunch of things clicked into place. And I reread the book and remembered that, again, it's not just me, it's 20 to 30% of the population. And now researchers are saying it's more like 30%. So there are, what I find frequently when I'm talking with leaders in corporate is most of them, or very many of them, knew from childhood that there was something a little bit different, that they either were very sensitive to sounds and lights and temperature changes and colors or art and nature, things like that, or they were highly intuitive and knew things that they weren't sure how they knew.
Mhm.
Um, there are a lot of things that go on with us as children that we don't really question. And we don't learn until later that not all children are like that.
Right.
And there are unfortunately a lot of downsides to it too. So a lot of us, if we grew up in families that didn't understand or didn't share our trait, may have been told you're too sensitive or grow a thicker skin.
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of stories, unfortunately, about bullying that's happened because of a child being sensitive.
Right.
But chances are we knew something growing up that we were a little bit different, but we didn't necessarily know what it meant,
Mhm.
how else it could show up, what was good about it, um, or that there were other people that were also like this.
Right.
So there are ways of learning about it now, but it comes to a lot of people much later in life than they would have liked. I've had a lot of people say to me, God, I wish I had known about this 20 years ago. And I felt the same way, even though I actually did know about it 20 years ago. I wish I had learned even earlier and then really remembered and taken it in at that point.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I know. I felt the same way when I figured it out about myself. I like you're saying, I always had that feeling that I was different, but I didn't know, what that meant or how exactly or how to go take that difference and move forward. And so, yeah, I definitely was one of those people that was like, when I figured it out, I was like, oh, it would have been nice to know so many years ago. So I
Definitely.
know that you specifically work with women leaders in the workplace who, do have this superpower. And I know because I was one of those women, but at that time I didn't know. But we are kind of expected, being women in corporate and the corporate environment, because it is so much more of a masculine energy and so much more structured. We
Mhm.
are kind of told and expected and conformed to really, grow this thicker skin. And then if we are highly sensitive, we're, kind of frowned upon. And though, she's just too sensitive and she won't be able to take on that project or run that department or whatever it might be. So, how do you kind of work with women to really at the same time, kind of be aware of those expectations, but then start to come into their own, true authentic selves of having this superpower?
It's a really long journey sometimes.
Yeah. Mhm.
One of the things that is pretty common among people with high sensitivity or high perceptiveness is a really deep need to be authentic. So, authenticity is a core value,
Mhm.
and needing to do work and be in an environment that aligns with our goals and values is also core. What I hear a lot is that people are masking. They are putting on a facade because they're trying to emulate models of leadership from people who are different than
Right.
them, right?
Mhm.
A lot of the time that's men. A lot of the women that I work with don't have a lot of other women in leadership. And most women were not raised to be um, let's say to be themselves. So there are
Mhm.
lots of models that we see both in society and in corporate. Leadership is meant to be just one way, right? It's you have to be serious and you have to be strong and you have to talk loudly and you have to there are lots of different ideas. I'm just making that up, but
Right.
there are a lot of different ideas that we have about what a leader looks like and how a leader should act.
Mhm.
There are costs to masking and
Right.
to hiding who we are. And that includes burnout and other health issues and just general and genuine dissatisfaction with what we're doing.
Mhm.
The first thing that I work on with my clients is um, helping them understand their superpowers, all of the things, all of the value that they bring to an organization, to their teams, to themselves, to their families, all of the gifts that they have and the strengths that they have. And we look at how they have been leveraging those strengths, because a lot of the time we're not even aware of it. So another thing that's common with these women is they tend to be highly conscientious and highly responsible and take care of everyone and everything but themselves.
Right.
So they're kind of programmed, we are kind of programmed to not really look at the things we do as strengths or gifts or superpowers. It's just what we do, right? Somebody's got to do it, so we do it. There's so much that these women have to give, have to give. And there is so much to look at in terms of their accomplishments and their strengths. And really looking at that and working on self-confidence, if that's something that they need help with. Self-advocacy, learning how to find their voice, how to ask for what they want and need, how to stand up for themselves in addition for standing up for other people. They're often very comfortable standing up for others and defending others. Often if they're leading a team, they can be, the mama bear for their team.
Yep.
But they will not stand up for themselves. They will not, speak out and talk about what they need or what they want. So there's a combination of things in there that we look at. And I could go on and on, but
yeah, I mean, so many, words and descriptions that you just used. So are very applicable to me. So which is kind of funny. But so I know that when I was in corporate, and again, I wasn't leaning into who I really was. I was really following the advice and the models set by my director and other people who had been in leadership for a long time. But one of the things that I wonder is if I had figured out, really how to lean into my authentic self and really embrace my superpowers, how that would have benefited my team and my department and my company. So what do you see with the women that you work with when they really start to embrace their superpower and become their authentic selves? And what kind of benefit does that have, not just to them, but their company as well?
It's huge. And I'm so glad you asked that, because it really, I mean, this is the value that highly sensitive and highly perceptive people bring to the world. So one of the things I hear that some of these leaders do recognize is their teams tend to really like them when they are being their authentic selves. So again, some of the superpowers that come along with the trait are deep empathy and being able to read a room and being able to read people, and also understanding what individual people's strengths are. And so often these women, even if they have challenges in other areas, they tend to develop really, really deep loyalty from their team members, from people who are reporting to them, because those people feel seen and feel heard, and they know that their manager has their back.
Right.
When the leaders start embracing all of their superpowers and really find their voice and step into their power as themselves, as their authentic selves, there is basically nothing that they can't do. So typically they have very high expectations and high standards. Now there can be downsides to all of these things too, but those are manageable, right? They have a unique gift of being able to see both the big picture and the details at the same time. So most people are either big picture people or detail people. People with high sensory perception, I'm going to interrupt myself and step back for a minute. One of the things that this means is that our brains are actually taking in more information and processing it more deeply than other people. That's where the perception comes in.
Okay.
And so this gives us an ability to connect the dots, to make connections between ideas, between people, between details. And that allows us to see several steps ahead for one thing, and to think strategically about problem solving. So going back to, the big picture and the details, we're kind of seeing all of those things at once. And when there are problems to be solved, or when there's brainstorming that's going on, we can often see several steps down the line the possible implications and repercussions of decisions that are being made.
Right.
So that's, one side of it, just the strategy and the big picture part, running a business. I mean, that's critical to running a successful organization, right?
Right.
Another piece of it is how often, especially in the last few years, with all of the layoffs that have been going on in the corporate world, how often have you heard stories or maybe seen firsthand examples of leaders who were a little bit tone deaf and had to deliver really bad news to their organization, but weren't reading the room particularly well, or thinking about the different ways that people could be responding to this, or thinking about the different questions that people might have as they're hearing this news? A leader who is highly perceptive is taking all of those things into account, probably long before they have to actually get out and speak to people about it. And so they're coming not only with a full plan and, a way to address all the questions, and a way for people to talk to people, and providing support for everyone, and attuning their own presence and the way that they're speaking with people to what they sense their audience needs. That in itself is an amazing gift, and the reason that a lot of women leaders are able to do what they do and progress in their careers.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So a couple of more things came up for me while you were going through that. So I think the first one that I want to touch on is, being highly perceptive is a gift, but is it something that can be learned by somebody who might not have been born with that?
So it's an interesting question. The research shows that our brains are actually a little bit different. And I'm not a brain science person. I won't get into the details. There's a great book, if you're interested, about just that. The thinking is that we are actually born this way. That said, two things can happen. One of them is that certain circumstances in our life can actually make us more perceptive or more sensitive. The other thing is, I think that you can learn to perceive more. Now, it doesn't mean, I was talking before about all of the different, inputs that our brains are taking in. It doesn't mean you can change the filters in your brain to take in more. But think about mindfulness meditation and mindfulness activities. Those are designed to help people be more mindful, to perceive more. So there are definitely practices that you can adopt and things that you can try and that you can learn to perceive more, and to sense more, and to listen better. Honestly, a lot of it is just really, really good listening. And that's something that can benefit everyone. I think there's not enough good listening in this world. So there are ways to learn and cultivate some of the pieces of perceptiveness.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was, so I know that, we're really primarily talking about women who have this superpower because we're both women. But I mean, are there men out there who have this, as well? And I mean, does that look the same or does it look different? Do you know?
So I know some. I don't know everything. There's a lot to learn. What I do know is that the trait is non-gender specific, non-culture specific, non-anything specific. So it's 20 to 30% of the global population, regardless of anything else, regardless of sex, gender, orientation, anything else. When I started my coaching business, I did reach out to several men who did identify as highly sensitive. As we know, I think in our culture, in many cultures, there is even more of a stigma around the concept of sensitivity when it applies to men as opposed to women. So women, it's okay to be sensitive, maybe not as a leader, but in general. For men, it's very often not okay, or that's the message that they're sent from very, very early on.
Right.
So a lot of these men can struggle with. Let me back up. So I think the gifts are very, very similar. I mean, the gifts are more or less the same.
Right.
The challenges, I think, overlap and are very similar. And yet there are some differences. There are some challenges that I think highly perceptive women face that the men don't necessarily. And I think there are other challenges that highly perceptive men face that the women don't necessarily. And what I found was one of the things that I do is I facilitate a mastermind. And so when I'm working with a small group, I want to make sure that everybody in the group relates and is dealing with more or less the same challenges. So it didn't make sense to mix men with the women. And the men that I spoke with weren't quite as interested in forming that community. What I can say is just yesterday, a docuseries called Sensitive Men Rising was finally released. This is something that's been in the works for several years, and there were some interruptions because of COVID. It was actually directed and produced by the same man who directed and produced that Sensitive documentary that we were talking about before.
Okay. Yeah.
So his name is Will Harper. The docuseries comes in 3 parts. It's 3 hours that cover sort of general what sensitivity can look like in men and sort of a general introductory piece. Then there's a piece about sensitive boys and how to recognize the trait in your children and how to nurture and raise sensitive boys into men who are going to do amazing things in the world.
Right.
And the third one is actually about leadership and highly sensitive men. So I know you have a lot of followers and audience members who are male, who identify as male. If this resonates with you at all, I recommend that you go to, I think it's sensitivemenrising.org. And I was just there yesterday. The film was released on a limited basis. I'm not sure when it's going to be released publicly completely, but you should be able to find more information on their website.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for mentioning that. So, can we talk about strategies for somebody who, is hearing this and there are things that have resonated with them that we're talking about? So, they're probably wondering, oh, do I have this superpower? What does that mean for me? So, can we talk about, how they can kind of get started in figuring out if they have this superpower and going in the right direction and really being able to benefit from it instead of continuing to kind of be hindered by it because of, what we're taught and told we should be doing?
Absolutely. So there is one really easy way to determine whether or not you have the trait. And that is you can go to Elaine Aron's website. She's a psychologist I mentioned earlier, who was the first person who started doing research on this trait. If you go to hsperson.com, she has on the homepage, there's something that says, self-assess, and then there are a few different options. Just go to the regular self-assessment. And it's a free, very short, well, quick, but long. I think it has almost 30 questions in it. You just answer 30 or so questions, and it will tell you, based on the number of certain kinds of answers that you have, whether or not it's likely that you are a highly sensitive person.
Okay.
There are other assessments that are out there. I actually have one on my website. It's a little bit different. It talks more about areas in your life that could probably use support based on this trait. And my website is right on the screen, rercoaching.com. So you can look at that assessment as well. That's also free. I think what is something that I've been talking about a lot with people recently, with some of my clients and other people that I'm interviewing for the book that I'm working on, is feedback. Proactively seeking it and learning how to accept it. Now, feedback can be really, really challenging for those of us who are highly sensitive because we tend to take things very personally, even if we know intellectually that it's not meant as a personal thing.
Right.
But of course, feedback is personal, even if it's feedback on our job and not on our, our personality.
Mhm.
The leaders whom I've spoken with who have been the most successful in their careers, who identify as highly perceptive, are the ones who have learned to distance themselves from the personality aspect of feedback
Mhm.
and to go and to proactively seek it out from people whose opinions they respect. So there's always that, part of feedback where it's like, well, I don't know if that person really gets me, or, that person has a really different point of view, so I'm not sure how valid it is.
Mhm.
The point is to, again, to try to get some distance from it.
Mhm.
Ask people whose opinions you respect how they feel that you're perceived, or what they think you could possibly work on so that you can get to the next step or get a promotion or anything like that.
Mhm.
One of the things that I've noticed about my clients and anybody else I've talked to that identifies as being highly perceptive is we're all learners. We love learning new things and we're always curious.
Right.
Excuse me. And we never are particularly interested in maintaining the status quo.
Mhm.
So we want to learn how to improve, especially ourselves and our performance. And we want to learn how to better manage our teams and lead our teams and support our organizations.
Right.
So learning how to get a little bit more comfortable or less uncomfortable with feedback is really, really important.
Right.
And
Right.
you can seek out a coach. There are lots of coaches who work with highly sensitive people, and find someone that you resonate with personally and talk about the specific challenges you're having.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for those tips there. I think that's great. So do you have any like final thoughts for people who are watching in regards to, what we've been discussing on high sensitive perception?
I do. So one of my missions is to help people understand. And when I say people, I mean everyone, both people
Mhm.
with this trait and people who don't have it. Sensitivity is not a weakness. It is not something that you need to be afraid of. Somebody who's highly sensitive, it does not mean that they are difficult to work with or that you need to be careful around them. It is a set of superpowers that can make the world ultimately a better place.
Mhm.
The difference between highly sensitive people and people who are not highly sensitive is we need to have favorable conditions in which to thrive.
Right.
So there was a study that was done several years ago where they called kids, I think it was the orchids and the dandelions,
Oh.
and they were looking at highly sensitive kids versus not highly sensitive kids. And
Mhm.
I mean, you can just understand from the flowers how this goes, right? So
Right.
orchids need very specific kinds of conditions to flourish in.
Mhm.
When they have those conditions, they thrive and they're amazing, right? Dandelions are a little bit more robust, a little bit more sturdy. They don't really care where they are, what their conditions are like, and they can be everywhere.
Mhm.
We need both of them. The world needs
Right.
both of them, right? There's also
Mhm.
an analogy that Elaine Aron uses in her book, and I'll be really quick, just about the ruling class and the advisor class. And
Mhm.
the ruler class are typically people who are not as sensitive. You have to be a real warrior or a king. You need to not take things personally. You need to
Right.
not get emotional about things, right? But those rulers always have a priest class, an advisor class, the teachers, the trainers, the people who are a little bit more attuned to the people in
Mhm.
general and
Mhm.
can advise those in power about what needs to happen, what the people need, how to handle certain kinds of things. So
Right.
the world needs all of us, and we all need to open our minds a little bit more about neurodiversity and traits that other people have, and just all of our brains work differently. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I'm a huge advocate about, really discovering and embodying your true authentic self. We are all unique. We're not, none of us are exactly like somebody else. And instead of, being scared of that or not liking that, learning to embrace that, because like you're saying, we all need that diversity in order for things to really work well. If we're all the same, then things aren't going to work out well. So, so yeah, I totally agree with you there. So, Rachel, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I know the people watching have learned a lot as well. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Angilie, for having me. I'm really passionate about this topic, and I was really excited to come here and talk with you. And I'm glad it resonates, and I hope that it's been helpful for your listeners.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much. Now, I am so excited to announce the launch of our new premier transformational coaching experience, Meant to Lead. Now, unlike traditional leadership development programs, Meant to Lead emphasizes internal growth and self leadership as the cornerstone of effective leadership and career growth. Now, I've spent the last 2 years meticulously crafting Meant to Lead, drawing from the insights I've gained from my own journey as well as from guiding others. Now, central to the program are the four components which I've identified as being crucial for personal transformation: a proven strategy and process, acquiring the proper tools, having the right guidance, and being in an environment conducive to growth and success. Now, participants of our Meant to Lead transformational experience will embark on a transformative journey discovering their inner phenomenal leader and learning to lead themselves to success and fulfillment. My philosophy is grounded in the belief that effective leadership stems from mastering self leadership and tapping into one's extraordinary power. So don't miss this opportunity to unlock your fullest potential. Just go to our website now for more information. Now, if you'll remember in this segment, Manifest While You Rest, the purpose of it is to be intentional. And when we let our mind know what types of things we need to work on the next day, it will actually problem solve, brainstorm, and find solutions for us so that we can immediately have the solutions and ideas we need to tackle our projects head on the next day. Now, this segment offers a unique approach to personal growth and empowerment, where you'll learn how to tap into the power of your subconscious mind and use it to manifest your deepest desires. So, today in this segment, I want to briefly discuss the importance of sleep and giving your body and your mind time to rest, recover, and recuperate. Now, the critical role of sleep in mental and cognitive functions is increasingly highlighted by a wealth of scientific evidence demonstrating its indispensability in ensuring optimal mental health and cognitive performance. Research has consistently shown that during sleep, particularly during the deep REM sleep, rapid eye movement phases, the brain engages in various essential processes such as memory consolidation, problem solving, and emotional regulation. And this is also where our subconscious mind works diligently, aligning our desires with actionable ideas and solutions, setting the stage for us to tackle our projects with clarity and confidence upon waking. So, thus, REM phase sleep emerges not only as essential, but foundational in manifesting our deepest desires and achieving our goals. Now, one study from the National Sleep Foundation found that adults require between 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night to function at their best. Yet the CDC reports that 1 in 3 adults does not get enough sleep, a shortfall contributing to a range of cognitive impairments, including reduced attention span, diminished memory, and decreased problem solving capabilities. Now, furthermore, compounding these findings, the Harvard Medical School research underscores sleep's role in creative problem solving, revealing that individuals who achieve adequate rest are 33% more likely to infer connections among distantly related ideas. Now, beyond cognitive performance, sleep's impact on emotional and psychological well being is profound. The American Psychological Association highlights studies indicating poor sleep can exacerbate emotional disorders such as depression and anxiety, while good sleep patterns are associated with better emotional resilience and positive mood regulation. Now, these statistics and findings underscore the vital importance of sleep not just for physical recuperation, but as a foundation for mental sharpness, creativity, problem solving abilities, and emotional stability. Now, by prioritizing sleep, we invest in our mind's capacity to operate at its peak, enabling us to not only manifest our desires, but to approach life's challenges with clear, focused, and innovative mindset. And with that, my challenge for you this week is to get the rest and sleep that not only your body, but especially your mind needs. All right, and there you have it, beautiful souls. As this episode of Take the Lead, a consciousness movement with Angilie Kapoor comes to a close, I want to thank my guest, certified leadership and executive coach Rachel Radway, once again for joining us on the show today and for sharing her incredible knowledge and insights with us on how to embrace your unique superpowers by learning how to tap into your innate wisdom by harnessing the strength of high sensory perception. And also, thank you, Bright Light, for being here with us today, too. Remember, as I always say, I don't believe in coincidences, and you, dear one, were meant to be here today to receive whatever message you were meant to receive from this episode. So keep showing up, keep loving on yourself, and keep making progress on your journey to becoming the phenomenal leader I know that you truly are. Now, be sure to join me next week as we'll be exploring another amazing topic with our special guest, media and podcasting expert Christine Blasdale. She will be here with us on the show next week to explore the importance of recognizing and fostering talent within your team, offering valuable guidance on empowering others to reach their full potential. And I've already had the privilege and honor of having an interview discussion with Christine already, and I can tell you she has an incredible journey, as well as so many incredible gems of wisdom to share. So trust me, it'll be a conversation you won't want to miss. So be sure to set your reminders to be back here with me next Monday, June 24th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. All right, my beautiful, phenomenal leader, have a great week, and I will see you next Monday. Take care. Coming up next week on Take the Lead, a consciousness movement with Angilie Kapoor. Guest Christine Blasdale is here to discuss leading with the heart and nurturing team talent. Don't miss next week's episode on E360 TV.